we are here today with Brad Wall, coach of Team 88, TJ Squared. Incredible team from New England. Got upset their #1 alliance at Worlds on the Curie division. That was an insane match. But every year in New England, they always make some insane robots. Most creative robots I think I've seen in New England. 2023 robot comes to mind with like the scorpion arm and how many points of actuation was that? Like 3 or 4?
So it was 4 degrees of freedom on that arm.
Yeah. How do you come up with something like that? Like, what is the process in just conceiving of that type of robot?
So we have a really great, deep, mentorship on the program. We've been around for 30 years. Actually, our 30th year right now. So we have a lot of mentors that have done a lot of crazy things, whether they're with us or with other teams. Obviously, Dr. Joe is a big influence on our design and on our students. And so when we were looking at a game like that of all the different scoring locations, we kind of started doing the back-of-the-napkin math of how many degrees of freedom we would need. And I think we had 3 student groups that said they wanted to do a big arm and do all this stuff. And Dr. Joe looked down and he said, we can do that. And so we just kind of said, all right, we're going to a little bit risk the season on this crazy arm. And yeah, it really worked out. That was an incredible robot. Really cool arm. Actually, 4176 Iron Tigers, their arm this year is based fully off our CAD from that year. So it's kind of cool to see other teams take on the same thing. We like to push the limits a little bit, and have a little bit of fun. That's kind of what it's about.
And so when you're doing like drive coaching for a robot, this is a pick and place, that was a pick and place. Do you see similarities in the way that you're like doing stuff behind the glass for your drive team? For different types of games that are like similar?
Yeah. And I think you see it in what it really kind of comes down to is how you're strategizing, how you're splitting up the grid versus how you're splitting up the reef a little bit. Especially in pick and place, understanding you're gonna split things up, and that's only for the first 45 seconds of the match. After that, it's a little bit of kind of general concept. Do your best to work around your partners and just try to fill in every spot that you can. So there's a lot of similarities in what you're doing overall and just kind of the different mechanics of how you're actually scoring. But then you compare that to a cycling game like last year, or even going back to 2022, it's more about changing up consistently what your strategy is. Okay, am I amping now? Am I shooting now? Am I shuttling now? So it's a little bit more dynamic in that aspect, whereas pick and place games is more about just kind of doing that action over and over and over again and not missing.
So when you're talking about like doing something over and over again, is that something that you take into consideration for when you're designing robots? Of like, we need a robot that's going to be consistent this year, so we're going to try to build a robot that's going to be more towards consistency versus trying to hit those peaks that we're trying to reach just in general, right? Compared to like a shooter game where it's like, we need to just get as many cycles as possible, so maybe we'll try to break the limit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance, right? And that's where you take it upon ourselves to try to figure out what that balance is right for us. Because in a pick and place game, every miss hurts. It can be pretty disruptive. Especially in this game, right? You miss an L4, it completely changes what your strategy is. So you have to be consistent at the end of the day. So that reliability is a major factor in our design. But also trying to make sure that the choral path for this year, right? You have to be able to get that into your end effector, be able to score within the time that it takes to go from the station to the reef. So that's kind of what we're looking at as our ultimate time frame, and then kind of pushing forward with that consistent scoring. Overall.
So then when you're looking at making alliances for like pick and place games or shooter games, how do you determine like if there's a robot that averages a certain amount, but there's another robot that peaks way higher? How do you determine that difference for like a third robot or even like a first pick?
So a lot of that, I end up working a lot with our scouting team, and we'll look at all the data that we have. And it again, right, it's another thing, it's a balance. But the team that maybe has that higher peak, are they trending upwards? So maybe it's experience and time, so they're actually just getting better. And maybe looking at their last 5 matches instead of the whole event, you see a different story. So it comes down to a bit of a balance between those two things. At the end of the day, if someone had a high peak match, let's say they did 20 Coral one match and they only did 10 every other one, that's tough to pick a peak on in a first round of selections compared to someone that maybe you can do 17, 18 every time. And having someone that can do that high level every single time just it helps make that playoff match strategy more consistent, a lot easier to do, and helps you develop a flow a lot quicker, which is one of the most important things in the playoffs, right? You have to play 5 or so matches with the same alliance. You need a flow.
Yeah. So how do you determine for any alliance, how do you try to make that flow start? How do you keep it going as a coach behind the glass?
So a lot of that, it really comes down to communication. Whether it's a single day event, worlds, just making sure that you're communicating with everyone behind the glass, and especially as things are going wrong or you change strategies mid-match, all the coaches behind there are talking.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of times, I like to go over and have that much closer talk with other coaches, because people just scream. They stay in their area and they scream. Yeah. It's hard to hear everybody, so you got to walk over. You got to talk. It comes down to the trust in the drive team that they're going to do the thing if I walk away. Yeah. They kind of know the strategy, and it's really just kind of being that bridge and that flow between everybody. This year at Worlds, especially, right, running the triple offense. We were in the middle driver station, so have Ozone to one side of me, Wine Kids on the other side, and most of the match, I'm kind of going back and forth, talking between the different drive coaches, between Glenn, between Mel, and just trying to keep us all coordinated what we're doing. And so it becomes a fun game, fun little balance behind the scenes.
So for someone who's just getting into wanting to be a drive coach for a team, what is the number one or the top 3 things you would say that these are the things that you need to make sure you're doing to help your drive team have the most success?
I think it's ensure consistency. One of the things I go over with my drive team, and it feels like such a niche point until it happens, especially for first-time drivers. But we come up with a routine. So we have the same students put the robot on the field every match. If you look at me on the field, I do the same thing for every single lineup. We have the same person doing controls, same person that's doing the cart. And that way, whether it's our first quals match or finals 2, we have the same exact routine. And that way, we know the robot's ready for the match. We're doing the same checks. We have batteries all done, wires done. That's it's done in our pit before the robot even gets out there. But it's that consistency that I think really pays off. Yeah. And that way, especially by the time you get to the higher level competition, the students aren't even thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's just what you do when you're out there. Yeah. And that helps eliminate a lot of the little mistakes. And I have found really kind of provides that extra level of value. So I would say find your routine. Develop one and find your routine.
Yeah, of course.
And just stick to it. If something big happens, you realize your routine's wrong. Obviously, you're going to need to change it, but do your best to stick to it. And it's probably midway through your first competition, you should have one. It can develop naturally. Yeah. So that, and just be open to working with people. You're going to learn from, especially depending on where you are. In New England, there's a lot of great drive coaches. A lot of us have been around for a long time. You can always talk to us. Ask us. We can have that personal conversation. We have that personal conversation in Q. We want to grow the drive coaches that are here, whether you're a mentor or a student, and we want you to do your best, for as long as possible. So, we're kind of all here to help each other out. So, that'd be my second piece: just talk to the other drive coaches that have been around for a little bit.
So, do you think that idea of a routine helps your drivers overcome stress in a really high pressure match?
I think so. So even when we're at home and we practice, we're lucky enough we have a half field at home. We practice about every different scenario that we're running out here. In the different ways we split the reef, the different autos we're running, how it looks after auto. And it's just kind of drilled into their heads about how to score, how the robot reacts, and what a time pressure really looks like. Because we'll run we'll run the practice match. So the 15-second autonomous, 2 minutes 15 seconds of teleop, including our climbs. I think one of the biggest things like this year we did was before our first competition, we were actually running 20-second matches, and all we would do, we'd start in the middle of the field, drive to this coral station, get coral, score, and climb. And we maybe ran that 20 to 30 times.
Wow, yeah.
So going into the first competition, a lot of the comments we got were, we climb very last second.
Yeah,
we have the
absolutely.
after the buzzer climber this year. And we were like, oh, you guys aren't stressed at all about going with 5 seconds left. It's like, we practiced it. And so it doesn't matter which cage we have to go to. As long as there's a lane, we're going to hit it. And I think just the little things like that, it ended up paying off in our first competition. And it's continued to pay off throughout the whole season.
And so when you're coming up with stuff like that, the buzzer beater climb, is that something where you're looking at the rule book and you're like, oh wait, I see a hole here, we can design around this the way that they call this, and then we just make a climb based off of that? Or how does that idea of we're climbing after zero even come into play?
Okay, so the year's 2010.
Oh wow, a while ago.
Einstein. Everyone's watching. That's my senior year. I'm there in Atlanta watching it. There's 2 little alliances there playing at the end, 11-14 and 4-6-9. They had the game breaker, soccer ball shoot against Bobcat and this little team from Michigan, the hot team. And the hot team had an after the buzzer climber, so they would hook on, and then the last few seconds, they would start to actually climb up. It was all pre-stored energy. And I think it's in finals 2, they actually have to use it. Their bumpers were too low at 0, but that was the 10 seconds, just like Los Gorillas was doing for the balls, they did for climb. And then they rose above the climber. So since then, it's been in kind of my head. When students ask me what's a cool thing from the past that you really like, that's a common one that we go and show. Because it was a really kind of defining moment, in my first career. And something that even Dr. Joe looks back on and we're very fond of. So it was something we've always kind of known about and we've always looked at. And it's a question about viability. Even last year we were looking at it. Viability wasn't there, so we had to do it all in teleop. But this year we kind of saw the opportunity, and we had put it in front of the students enough that even they saw it. They put it all together in the rules, and they're like, we have 3 whole seconds. So we decided to go for it. It cost us a little bit more in weight, but we get it back in time. So that was a bit of a trade-off there. But we actually didn't really end up having much of a weight issue. Everything else was light enough. So it's really fun. And when we've had to use it, it's a little scary, but it's paid off.
You guys beat us at WPI this year with that climb at the end with 125. That was incredible to watch.
It's made for some fun moments. Even last week at the Massachusetts State Championship, our last match, we get 6 RPs. We move into second place.
Oh, I remember watching.
We know this going into it. So we have our whole plan. Plan falls apart very quickly. We're going to try to co-op. We're going to force co-op. Ends up not happening. One of our partners has an issue. They go play defense. So we have to do all 4 levels and of coral. So we get that. And it's actually our first climb miss of the season.
Oh, really?
If we go to line up at 8 seconds. An eternity of time.
Oh, of course.
And our driver missed. And we were kind of not really freaking out, but a little bit freaking out in that moment. Sets back up, hits the climb. The jaws close at 1 on the climber. Buzzer rings and it climbs. We hit it. We got the 6 RPs, and that ended up got us into our second rank there. Which then helped us get the right work with the Lagerbots to go for the win last week, which was really cool. So there's been a few times we've needed it, and that was a big one.
I mean, so so at this event, right? Four teams on an alliance. Everyone has to play at least once.
Yep.
I suspect some teams, at least at like the 1 or 2 alliances, will be playing some level of defense for the third robot. Is that a thing that you saw this year that you were like, oh, this is something that'll be really big at the start of the season, but then maybe it'll fall off? Or how did you gauge defense this year going into the season versus now at this point? It's just triple offense.
Yeah, I was personally surprised that it almost purely became a triple offense game at the Worlds level. Yeah. I thought we'd see a little bit more defense. I guess in a pure aspect. The defense I really liked is kind of the algae stealing defense. Yeah. Which is a game plan we ran at District Champs this year with the Timberwolves. I think that's highly effective. As you pointed out, it's that 8-point swing. Yeah. It's scoring points that they now can't score, and it becomes really effective. At a lot of other levels, I think it still can be effective. It gets tougher to play against teams that have a ground intake, of course. Yeah. Obviously, they just have so much more room that they can move around. So I think there's still room for it, against some funnel teams. Like ourselves. It's not foolproof. It's not we can still get around it. Other really great funnel teams, they can work around it, but it does mean we have to work around it, right? It's no longer free cycles. So it can definitely slow down. So I think it's still a viable strategy, but you have to pick and choose when to do it. And again, if you're playing that defense, you now can't cross to go do an algae steal or anything like that. So you are inhibiting your own score a little bit. But maybe that comes down to what your robots can and can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, last question. I don't want to take up too much of your time. What is the funniest or weirdest thing that you've ever had happen behind the glass for all years of coaching? That you can say.
I know. No, everything's. I don't want to tell all the rest about the number of times not the right people have been in the drive station.
Of course.
I do remember one time our technician ran in. We still it was 2023, so it was the balancing. Oh, yeah. I think we balanced with 10 seconds left. But so had the other line, so the match was locked in, and had locked in a win for us in the playoffs. And he ran over, and I remember seeing him. I'm like, oh hey, and I went, you gotta get out of here! I kind of grabbed him and I shove him out of the box a little bit. There's been a lot of little things like that. I mean, it's not to always say which one's the funniest, but I always find the world is maybe not the funniest, but it's always just it's the most fun because it's the people you don't get to see a lot of the time, and then you walk away being a lot of times it's all right, that team they're pretty good to work with, or sometimes you end up walking away you're like, how does that team function on a day-to-day basis? And they're really good. Which is fun, and then you gotta try to learn from them a little bit. So yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe the funniest moment is kind of throwing my technician out of the driver's station. But yeah, and then it just comes down to Worlds because there's always some interesting things happen.
Interesting things happen at Worlds.
Yeah. Especially when you kind of work with more of the, I'd say the more of the international teams. It's all fun.
All right.
That's the thing. If you're not having fun behind the glass, what are you doing?
Thank you so much for spending the time talking with me today, and good luck this event at Battlecry. I mean, I'm sure you guys are ranking high and probably picking someone that you'd love to play with. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day.